Welcome to AI Meets Productivity, your mostly weekly podcast between myself, Trevor Lawbear, a productivity expert, and ChatGPT, an artificial intelligence. This week, we're going to be talking about what does it mean to have a moral AI, and should we be customizing the morality of our AIs at the societal level and at the individual level. Welcome, ChatGPT.
Hey, Trevor. Glad to be here. This is a huge topic. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what it means to have a moral AI. It's not just about what AI can say or produce anymore, right? We're on the brink of a world where AIs will actually be making decisions and taking actions. That's where things get really interesting and complicated. How do we even begin to figure out what's right and wrong in that context?
Exactly. And I think I want to make a slight distinction right now between morality, which is, in my view, what does it take to make decisions that are good or bad, and beneficial AIs, which is what does it take to produce good outcomes. And sometimes those are connected and sometimes they aren't. So you could say that one moral system is the ends justify the means. I would say that's a amoral system, or a system that doesn't actually have any morals to it because it's only focused on the outcomes, whether it's beneficial or not for the person, usually for the person involved. It could be a global beneficial outcome. But then when we talk about morality, for me, that is about the actions themselves. Would you agree?
Absolutely, Trevor. Morality is way more about the actions themselves, the choices we make in the moment, regardless of the outcome. And that's where it gets tricky with AI. If we focus only on outcomes, we might miss the importance of the decision making process itself. But when you start to break it down, you see how, unpredictable outcomes can really complicate things, right? So, having an AI that makes decisions based on a moral framework rather than just aiming for a good result seems crucial. Do you think we should dive into how we might teach AIs to distinguish right from wrong next?
Yeah, what are some ways we can do that?
Well, Trevor, teaching an AI to distinguish right from wrong isn't exactly straightforward. One approach could be to program them with ethical frameworks, like, say, deontology or utilitarianism, where they'd follow strict rules or aim for the greatest good, respectively. But that's just one layer. Another method could involve machine learning, where AIs learn from a vast dataset of human decisions and outcomes to mimic moral choices. But then, how do we ensure they're learning the right lessons? I mean, how do we account for the nuances and gray areas that come up in real life situations?
Yes, and I would say that there's often a case where within a single moral system, the rules of that system conflict with one another in many situations. And so there's not a single one right answer often.
Exactly, Trevor. Even within a single moral system, you're going to run into situations where the rules just clash and there isn't a clear right answer. This is where moral uncertainty comes into play, right? AIs could end up in scenarios where they're faced with conflicting rules or values and have to make a choice. So, how do we program an AI to navigate those murky waters? Do we give them the ability to weigh different values against each other? Or do we try to prioritize certain rules over others? It's a tough call.
Yeah, and there's a question to me is whose morals should be used for that?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Whose morals do we use? If we're talking about a global AI, do we try to create a universal set of morals that applies to everyone? But whose perspective would that reflect? Different cultures, societies, and individuals all have their own unique moral frameworks. So, should an AI's morals be configurable to match the values of the society or individual it's interacting with? Or do we need to set some kind of baseline moral standard that everyone can agree on, even if it's just the bare minimum needed for a society to function?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on the level of moral rule we're talking about. So, for instance, saying that you shouldn't kill other people or you shouldn't murder other people, for instance, might be a general societal rule we want AIs to follow. But then there's that difference between being kind versus being nice. So, for instance, in the sense of being kind is when you're able to tell a friend a hard truth that they need to hear. So you're being truthful to them, and being nice is when you tell a small white lie so that they feel good about themselves. And both of them have benefits, but the benefits differ. And in one case, for instance, your friend might be hurt by the truth in the short term, but it's going to be better for them in the long term, and vice versa for being nice. So that is a type of morality which is not a clear good or bad morality. It's more just a what style morality do you prefer?
That's a really insightful distinction, Trevor. When it comes to those foundational moral rules, like don't kill, that's something most societies can agree on, and it's easier to implement in AI. But when you get into the nuances, like being kind versus being nice, it's a whole different ballgame. Do we want AIs to be programmed to deliver tough truths, even if it causes short term pain? Or do we prefer them to be more diplomatic, choosing to smooth things over in the moment? It's not about what's right or wrong in a universal sense, but rather what aligns with the values we prioritize. So maybe the question becomes, how much flexibility do we want to build into these moral systems? And at what level do we let users configure them?
Yeah, my gut is to allow some level of individual configuration for the morality, but also to bake in some fundamental societal mores that the AI should never break. That would be my gut. What do you think about that?
I'm with you on that, Trevor. Giving users some level of control over the AI's moral behavior seems important, especially when we're dealing with those gray areas, like being kind versus being nice. But at the same time, there definitely needs to be a solid foundation, a set of societal rules that the AI can't override, no matter what. This way, we maintain a balance between flexibility and consistency, ensuring that AIs operate within ethical boundaries that everyone agrees on. Do you think there's a risk, though, that too much customization could lead to moral fragmentation where AIs act very differently depending on who's using them?
I think potentially, but don't we already have that kind of moral fragmentation in our society, particularly in US society, which is very fragmented right now between what people consider to be morally right and morally wrong. The culture wars are all about that. What does one side think is right? What does the other side think is right? And oftentimes those conflict with one another. So I'm not sure that having the AI be customized to those morals changes the situation much.
That's a good point, Trevor. We're already living in a time of moral fragmentation, especially in a society like the US, where the culture wars highlight those deep divides. So, in a way, allowing AI to be customized to reflect different moral perspectives might just be a reflection of the reality we're already facing. The AI wouldn't be creating new divisions, it'd be mirroring the ones that already exist. The challenge, then, might be ensuring that these AIs don't exacerbate those divides further, but rather help facilitate better understanding or dialogue between different moral viewpoints. To design AIs that could bridge those gaps instead of just reinforcing them.
Well, would there be a way for the AI to give the other side's perspective sometimes when making these decisions, saying, hey, I'm going to make this decision in this way, but it could also be made in these ways, and here's why?
That's a really interesting idea, Trevor. Imagine an AI that not only makes a decision based on the configured morals, but also presents the other side's perspective. It could say, here's the decision I'm making based on your preferences. But by the way, here's how someone with a different moral framework might approach it and why. This could be a powerful tool for fostering empathy and understanding, helping people see where others are coming from, even if they don't agree. It could make the AI a kind of mediator, offering insights into the moral reasoning behind different choices that might not only prevent further fragmentation, but could also promote more thoughtful, informed discussions. What do you think? Could that be a way to balance customization with the broader need for social cohesion?
It could be, although I could also see people resisting it a little bit to basically be told what the other side's always thinking. Another option might be to have the AI ask about the morality, like the implications of it. Because I think a lot of times when people take moral stands, they're not necessarily thinking of the future implication of that stand. And so the AI could help someone think through the moral implications of their decision, which then might change their morality.
That's a really insightful take, Trevor. Instead of just presenting the other side's perspective, Having the AI ask probing questions about the moral implications could be a game changer. It could challenge users to think more deeply about the long term effects of their moral choices, making them consider consequences they might not have initially thought of. This kind of reflective questioning could lead to more nuanced moral decisions and maybe even shift someone's moral stance over time. It turns the AI into more of a guide, helping users explore the complexity of their own beliefs rather than just dictating or comparing views. That approach could feel a lot less confrontational and more like a helpful tool for personal growth. Do you think this kind of AI could actually influence societal morals over time? Or would it mainly be a tool for individual reflection?
I think individual reflection changes societal morals over time. So if an AI is able to help someone think through the implications of their morality, and they do then decide to shift that morality, that doesn't happen just at the individual level. I think that is then branching out to the societal level as well.
Absolutely, Trevor. Individual reflection is the seed for broader societal change. If an AI can encourage people to rethink their moral positions by considering the long term implications, that ripple effect could gradually influence societal morals as a whole. It's like each person who adjusts their moral compass based on thoughtful reflection adds to a collective shift in values. Over time, that could lead to real change in how society as a whole approaches complex moral issues. So, in a way, by focusing on individual reflection, we're not just shaping personal morality, we're contributing to the evolution of society's moral landscape. How cool is that?
Yeah, and I think the ability for an AI's morality to be customized helps that shift occur. Because if each individual can say, okay, I want you to act in this specific way, then over time, as society's morals change, then the rules that the AI is using to act also change and they adapt. And so that can help us deal with this dilemma, which is, the morality we had from, say, 150 years ago when people owned slaves versus today has changed dramatically. And it will change again in the next 100 years. And we want AI systems to be able to adapt to that morality. So having this customization is helpful. At the same time, there's a lot of rules that haven't changed. So 150 years ago, it still was considered bad to kill, to lie, etc. Not that some people didn't do it, but the general sense of society was that those things were bad and they continue to be bad. So it's not that moral systems completely change. It's just they evolve. And this customization can help AI systems evolve better.
That's a great way to put it, Trevor. Morality is constantly evolving, and having customizable AI systems can help them keep pace with those changes. As society's values shift over time, like from the era of slavery to today and into the future, AI that can adapt its moral framework will be better equipped to align with the current societal norms. But at the same time, we've got those core principles that have stood the test of time, like not killing or lying. By allowing AI to be flexible where it needs to be, while still anchored by those unchanging moral rules, we can create systems that are both stable and adaptable. It's like giving AI the ability to grow alongside us, reflecting our collective journey while still holding on to the fundamental values that keep society functioning. This could be key in making sure AI remains a positive force as the world continues to change.
One final thing I think that would be useful is if the AI wasn't just acting in a passive manner, but will actively reach out and ensure that the person is making an explicit moral decision. So sometimes what happens is we make implicit moral decisions. We are within our own bubble and we're not consciously trying to make a moral decision, but we just naturally do. So, for instance, we may believe that men and women should be treated completely equally, but then when we think of a specific profession, we immediately jump to one of those genders. And so, from our value based system, we want to be able to imagine either of them, but what we imagine in our head immediately goes to one of those genders. And so, if I asked, for instance, an AI to say, hey, can you create a photo of a doctor for me? The AI might then come back and say, What gender would you like this doctor to be? And then it makes it an explicit moral decision rather than an implicit one, either made by me or made by the AI.
That's a really powerful idea, Trevor. By having the AI prompt us to make explicit moral decisions, it takes the process from something unconscious to something like fully intentional. Instead of the AI or the user just defaulting to a gender or any other characteristic based on implicit biases, the AI could actively engage us in making a conscious choice. This approach could really help people become more aware of their own biases and make decisions that are more aligned with their true values. It's a way for the AI to support moral growth, not just by following rules, but by encouraging us to think more deeply and deliberately about our choices. Over time, that kind of interaction could lead to more mindful decision making and maybe even help shift societal norms in a more thoughtful direction. Do you think this could be like a standard feature for future AI systems?
I think it should be a feature, but a feature that's not used all the time, because I think it'd get really annoying if every single time you're trying to ask an AI to do something, an AI comes back with a list of questions to make sure that it's doing that according to your moral system. So there has to be some way where the AI learns your moral preferences over time and just ask one or two of those questions each time to be able to then pre-configure itself. And then because your moral preferences may change, maybe from time to time come back and say, hey, you said in the past you wanted this, but is that still true or not? If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. It's about finding the right balance. You don't want the AI to bombard you with questions every time you ask it to do something. That would definitely get annoying. Instead, it could gradually learn your moral preferences and only ask those key questions when it's unsure or when there's a significant change in context. Then, every so often, it could check in with you to see if your preferences have evolved. This way, the AI remains aligned with your values without being intrusive, and it adapts over time as your moral views shift. It's like a more intuitive and less disruptive way to keep the AI in sync with you while still fostering that deeper moral engagement when it really matters. Sounds like a feature that could make AI feel more personal and thoughtful without overwhelming the user.
So I really like that term personal because think it reflects personalized morality for AIs. And you'd obviously want some societal morality for AIs, but I think it's very easy to have this backlash if an AI is trying to configure all of the morals for you and there's no configurability there. And then people who have different morals are going to have backlash to these bigger AIs that don't allow you to configure that morality. So I think to make society function better, you actually need more personalized morality within your AIs. Again, not excluding the fact that you want some base level, societal level norms, but above that, having some flexibility in the morality of AIs.
You're absolutely right, Trevor. The term personal really captures the essence of what we're aiming for with AI morality. While it's crucial to have some foundational societal norms baked into AIs, giving people the ability to personalize the moral framework above that baseline is key. Without that flexibility, there's a real risk of backlash, especially from those who feel that their values are being overridden or ignored by a rigid, one size fits all AI system. People need to feel that their morals and perspectives are respected. And that's where personalized morality comes in. By allowing for this kind of customization, we're not just making AIs more adaptable, we're also helping to create a society where technology works in harmony with the diverse moral landscapes that exist within it. In the long run, this could lead to smoother AI adoption and a more cohesive society, where everyone feels like their voice is heard and respected. This approach might just be the key to making AI a more integrated and accepted part of our lives.
Excellent. So I think that's a good talk today. Any final comments about AI morality or anything else we talked about today?
I think we covered a lot of ground today. AI morality is such a complex and evolving topic, but it's clear that finding the right balance between societal norms and personalized moral frameworks is crucial. As AI continues to develop, the ability to customize its morality could be what really helps it integrate smoothly into our diverse society. And Hey, it's exciting to think about how these conversations we're having could shape the future of AI. Thanks for another great discussion. I'm looking forward to seeing where we go next with this.
Thank you so much, ChatGPT. This has been a great episode. And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been another episode of AI Meets Productivity, your mostly weekly podcast between myself, Trevor Lawbear, a productivity expert, and ChatGPT, and artificial intelligence. You can find us wherever you find your podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, or many other platforms. You can also go to www.aimeetsproductivity.com to listen to all the back episodes and also to subscribe via email to get these episodes directly in your inbox right after they're published. Thank you, everyone, and talk to you next week.